Hey Sarah, long time. Oh, this is exciting. I've got like people popping in from all different times of my life. How you doing,
What up?
Sam?
What up, Sarah? How you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Living quarantine life in Austin.
I know, right?
Hey Sammy. So Apple's just opening putting everyone's videos on as they jump in. And what we'll do is get everyone to stay on mute, but then just unmute yourself when you want to ask questions. Just wait a couple of minutes for some people to join us. But I hope everyone has prepared some questions because I'm really just here making myself available. I've got some stuff I can talk through if people don't have questions, but I think best use of our time is just to dive into the stuff that everybody really needs to know right now and things that people might be struggling with or whatever. What time is it?
I love listening to her voice.
Who loves listening to my voice?
That's like Alex.
All right, so maybe let's just kick off. People are just going to get joining. Does anyone who's on now have any questions to get started? Dealing with moving to remote. Just unmute yourself.
Hey Sarah, it's Sarah here. How are you going?
Hey Sarah, good. How are you, babe?
Good. Obviously, I've actually came back from Bali last week, so I'm actually in self-isolation as well over here. So I'm already experiencing it. And one of the things I'm finding really challenging is actually that feeling of isolation, even though I can sort of be connected. And just, my team we're getting everyone ready to be able to work from home. And I guess it's sort of, how to structure the day so that the whole team have a feeling of being connected, and also, do you have structured touch points, or we're just, trying to get a grasp on that.
Yep, for sure. All right, I can definitely speak to that. So given if most people are moving to emergency remote working, which is the theme of this webinar, obviously, unlike my company, you probably have people who are in the same time zone, which makes daily structuring a little bit better. It gets more tricky when you're all over the world, but I would recommend a daily huddle, excuse me, if you can. So that only really needs to be like 15 minutes or something. But first thing in the morning, or early-ish in the morning, maybe like 9 or 10 a.m. and just get on and maybe just go around the group and just say like, what are your top 3 priorities for the day or something like that. Just gives people a little bit of a check-in or a little bit of accountability or something like that around what they're going to be working on for the day, keeps them kind of thinking about keeping moving and what are the top priorities for that day. I'd also recommend a weekly meeting that's longer. So we do an hour in my company where we go through like why we exist, our purpose and our vision, and we go through our values, and then we go through the priorities of the business, and then the key things that we're working on, the updates, that need to come across in our business. So for our business, recruitment companies would give like a recruitment update, would give like a sales update, any issues with any clients that we need to look at. So just kind of create like a weekly agenda. And we have a section for any other business where anyone in the team can put some stuff down that they want to talk about. We use that time to ideate and to solve problems. What else do we have in there? We have cheers for peers, which is something that I think is like a pretty nice touch, where we give each other cheers for things that anyone in the team can write a thank you to anyone else in the team, and that feels really nice. I got a couple of my team members on this call. Feel free to jump in, guys, if you want to share anything. But that's really, really nice. So you could even do a daily huddle and maybe an end of day huddle as well, just to touch back in and see how everyone was going, and how everyone went with those priorities. And then I would recommend setting up either a Slack or a WhatsApp group or something for easy instant messaging if you don't already have that in your company. You know, WhatsApp is like super easy and fast to just hack together. If you want to put something in that's a little bit more robust, Slack would potentially be the thing. And then we in our business use Basecamp, which is project management, but also has the chat pings. And what you'll find is if you have something like that and you're able to just like chat throughout the day, you can create quite a lot of connection and sharing just going on as the day moves, because you can just be messaging each other here, there, and everywhere like we do on social media. So don't underestimate as well how used to communicating with each other online we actually are. With Facebook and Instagram and all the different ways that we talk. I mean, there's probably like 20 different messaging apps of some description that I talk to different people on every single day. So we actually are more used to it than we think. It's just about embracing that into the work culture in the same way that we do personally. Does that help, Sarah?
Yep, no, that's really good. And yeah, we have got in place, you know, Teams and as a instant messaging thing, but those other things about the huddles, they're really good. And even the terminology around it as well. I think you know, it is just, yeah, moving to a different way of thinking and communicating, even though we are doing it. So no, that's great. Thank you.
Pleasure. On the all company meeting, the other thing that I find works really well is having like different people have to report. So like my recruitment manager reports on the recruitment stuff, sales team report on the sales stuff, client consultants will report on client things. So that way, like you're getting this participation from everyone. So build your agenda out so that it's not just you as the leader talking. It's more like, you know, bringing everyone in and being inclusive. The other thing you could do, which depending on the size of your team, but the bigger the team, you probably have, you know, sub teams like the marketing team, the sales team or whatever. I'd schedule a weekly meeting for them as well and do the same thing, create an agenda that you go over each week. Depending on your business and how fast paced things are, you may need to do it a couple of times a week. At this point, I mean, we've been remote for 6 years. We don't even do a daily huddle anymore, but that's primarily because our team are all over the world. So there's no one time that would work very well for everybody. But we do that weekly team meeting, and then we have these other sort of sub team meetings that go on. And that weekly team meeting has really become pretty important for all of us to just get that face time. But we chit chat all day long on Basecamp. So, yep. All right. Who else has got questions? Just unmute yourself and ask away. Sammy's asked me something. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I can go.
Yep.
I put my hand up to develop the remote work policy for my team of, I mean, the whole company's 14 people, teams of 3. Mm-hmm. My current plan is to just find a bunch of resources around the internet and start building something together. Some required things, some tips, some optional things that staff can do if they want to. Do you have any tips for how to go about developing this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been hearing this whole like develop a remote work policy. I'm curious about like what that, I don't like having policies. It sounds like rules and regulations and things, but that could just be my personal approach. But do you know, what's the objective specifically? Is it to like give people guidelines of how to work, or is it to put rules in place for them? Do you know what the...
I think it's a bit of both. So for instance, something similar to a huddle, weekly check-ins with managers, maybe some things you might want to talk about with managers, including, you know, making sure there's time for informal chat, options for people to have lunch together via Zoom. So, and then also a lot of tips and optional things. So things about well-being and, you know, all the advice on the internet about working from home, how to stay sane, things about productivity, tracking your weekly projects. So a bit of everything. Yeah,
cool. So I love the idea of maybe calling it more like, remote work guidelines or something like that versus the word policy. And that's just something that I've instilled in my business from day one, is not to use really like terms like policy, because it sounds kind of rigid. And one of the coolest things about working more remotely is we can build a little more flexibility into our days and maybe more empowerment for our team. So a really big thing with remote working is it's this opportunity to really trust and empower your team and see what they're actually capable of. And in all cases, I've always found that people are capable of more than what we often think they are, and giving them a little more freedom and flexibility often really allows them to shine and step into their roles. But yeah, I would recommend, we created a emergency remote working guide, which we can send around to everybody afterwards. I don't think we've sent it out yet, but that'll give you a couple of things around just some stuff we put together really quickly. But I would recommend things like figuring out, if you haven't already, like what are the technologies and the actual ways that you're going to do things, the best practice for, maybe best practice guide is a good word for it, but best practice on communication. So one thing that can get a little bit confusing, as an example, is there are so many different ways we can communicate. So we can start firing off text messages. We could be chatting on Instagram even, but we might want to try to keep the business conversations in Slack or in Basecamp or in wherever we need them to stay, so that we can refer back to them. So putting some guidelines around things like that. I think you kind of already touched on it around your daily huddle and your weekly meeting. I would encourage people to use this as an opportunity to, let's say, allow more flexibility in hours. Oftentimes, and that's very personal and up to everybody, but oftentimes in the office setup, everybody arrives at 8:30 and everybody leaves at X time. And, the thing that I always think about that's kind of counterintuitive is not everybody is a morning person, or not everybody is an evening person. And we're potentially, as leaders, we're potentially not getting our people's best productivity when we're forcing them all to start work at a certain time in the day. Like half of them, might actually be more productive at 11 p.m. at night. So if you're feeling brave upon what you've been thrust into, maybe allowing people to trial out getting their work done when within their own flow, and focus more on outcomes than time and hours and like tracking in that way. I'm not really sure if I'm answering your question really well about how to create this guide, but I think you're on the right path in terms of some of the things you mentioned, and just getting it all documented and Googling some of the resources on the web to get you there. Is there anything specific more that I haven't touched on?
No, I think that's useful. Sending through the emergency doc that you have would be great. And then otherwise, I think the focus on more guidelines and empowering people is definitely a good pivot that I didn't think of. So thanks.
Yeah, maybe like you, and as leaders, so on this point, I think it's really important right now for us to be a light for our people. Our people are now working from home, forced to isolate as we are. It's challenging, as Sarah mentioned, and actually something great that they can focus on during this time is their work, is their purpose, is showing up every day and doing the things and pulling themselves away from the news and the fear mongering and all of the craziness. Like, this is actually can become a release and a relief and a source of creative energy that they can be using. So I think using this time to set them up each day, or right now calling a meeting and being like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and I believe in you and I want to empower you, and this is really exciting time for us. We have more space, more time to create, more time to learn how we work best. And if you're feeling brave enough, like, open up to some of that and see what you may find. I'm kind of excited because people are going to experience and understand how much more productive we can all be when we actually are more free to kind of work within our own daily rhythms of creativity and productivity. But I also appreciate that everyone's feeling very nervous about that, and it's hard to kind of excuse me, like, get your head around how do I see what my team are doing when they're not sitting next to me and all of those kinds of things. So I appreciate it's difficult, but thanks for the question, Elliot. That was great. Somebody else got a question?
I think Sammy put something
No.
in the chat.
Oh, yeah. So Sammy says, I'd love your best pitch for the benefits of immediate remote working for clients who are really struggling to wrap their head around it all. Benefits of immediate remote working. I probably was sort of starting to talk about that. Pam, do you have anything that you were thinking of when you?
Sorry, unmute myself. So I'll probably give a bit of background. I've been working with Sarah for many years in some of her companies, and we've been working with remote staff for many, many years. I've been working from home for many, many years, and I think for me, running a remote team primarily, being in Airbnb property management, and only having some staff on the ground, it really enables me to have basically my business run 24/7. I've got staff around the world, and most of the team members have either worked for years remotely or they haven't, and just started. But essentially, I really see a benefit in having someone looking after my clients whenever they really need it, or our guests whenever they need it. And it doesn't mean that we need to empower anyone to work 24/7. And I think for me, having the ability to fit my personal life into working has really given me the opportunity to be more free and getting more out of myself as well as my team. I empower them to work when they're at their best, whether it's time-wise, day of the week. I don't tell them you have to work 8 hours every day. If you can give me the results, and I can see the results in Basecamp. We use Basecamp as well. If I get the results, and every week we have our team meeting as well as individual meetings, and I get an update from everyone. And when I see the results come through, then I don't care if they work 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day, if they take 3 days off throughout the week, as long as they deliver what they need to. And I really see that people love and embrace that, because for them, they don't necessarily see sometimes how they can fill 8 hours in a day, or they feel pressured to having to deliver it within 8 hours every day. And I have really seen that by just checking in with them on a daily basis as well, or sometimes a bit more irregularly, depending on what role they have, that they really just love working in the business because they have so much more opportunity. And it's also good for them to just check in with one another and really see how they can help each other. And using technologies like Basecamp really makes that happen. And it brings us together globally. The only thing that might be a bit struggling for some businesses, and I personally have to kind of look at that sometimes as well with different time zones. My staff, I'm obviously in Melbourne in Australia, but I have team members in South Africa. I've got team members in Turkey, in the US, and finding the right time zone that works for everyone. So no one has to be up really early or very late. That is obviously something where we have to make compromises every now and then. But if everyone kind of can find some compromise to some extent or another for these team meetings, then that's, for me, a benefit as well.
Which, I mean, most people on the call, as we said, are probably not quite dealing with that time zone thing. So, but it is something that can be a little tricky down the track. I would say another kind of immediate benefit that I was thinking about as you were talking, and thanks so much for sharing your perspective, Pam, is I don't think we realize how much time is wasted with the office the arriving and the chit chat and how was your night and what's been going on, how was the weekend, and then the let's all go and grab a coffee, and then coming back, and then lunch, and then someone's in the kitchen and then they're having a chat. And often we're working long hours. We see people staying back at the office or coming in early. I know that's what I used to do years ago. I'd go in really early to get my work done because you know, there was a lot of social time happening throughout the day that really ate into my productivity. So plus commuting. So there's also the commuting on either side that people are losing. So yeah, that's an immediate benefit for your people and for yourself. I don't know if anyone has already experienced like those days where you just want to work from home to just get a bunch of stuff done because you can't seem to get it done while you're in the office. And often as leaders, this would be another immediate benefit actually that's just popped up to me is people, your team will think more about what they need from you before they ask you because you're not just right there. So they can't just turn around and be like, hey, Sarah, where's that thing? Hey, Sarah, where do we put that thing again? Where do we file that? Hey, Sarah, how do I do this? And all of a sudden, something about this barrier of having to write you a note or an email or reach out just makes them go, wait, I'm just going to look and just have a think for a minute about where it is. And you will find that your systems and your processes and your structures and efficiency will naturally improve fairly quickly because there's that little extra barrier to just people's laziness sometimes of just asking each other. And that is another big distraction for everybody in the team that's going on all day long that we don't realize. So yeah, those are probably some of the immediate benefits that you'll see is sort of freeing up time and starting to create better systems and processes and structures so that people are a little bit more self-reliant versus just leaning on each other all day long to get things done. All right, other burning questions? Anybody?
Hi, Sarah. It's Therese here.
Hi, love.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Nice to see you. And I just wanted to share something, and if anyone's got any anything they want to add, just to jump in. But I work for a company, and we all work remotely, our global staff. So we use a few things. We do something similar to Basecamp, but we kind of keep our casual conversations to a WhatsApp group, like the fun stuff, the sharing, funny stories, things going on with the families, and then keeping our business conversations to our Teams chat. But what I found over the last couple of weeks, especially with our team being, I'm in Singapore, we've got a team in Australia and the US and Europe. So when we're on our weekly team call, and even just during our daily chat, there's much more anxiety around how am I going to do my job because children are have to be sent home from school, right? So a lot of employees have families, children, so their work life is totally changed. But what I've seen is that those with families, they've got that now adding on to their remote working, right? But people who haven't been remote working, they've got that double whammy. They've got the double whammy of coping with remote working, but then the pressure of dealing with family stress that's exacerbated by that. And I just wondered if you've seen any of that or any more recommendations. I've just found that our team, everybody needs more of we have an icebreaker every week at the start of our meeting just to share those water cooler moments that you don't get when you're in an office, right? Standing, make your coffee in the kitchen. So those kind of personal connection points for management to show the caring side of things become even more, I think, important now. And I just wondered if anyone was doing anything sort of really cool to manage that outside of WhatsApp check-ins or we just see that anxiety happening with team members.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I don't have children myself, but some of my team members do. So I can speak to it from that side. And perhaps if anyone else wants to chime in, if you do have an experience, share on that. The one thing I would say is, once again, encouraging flexibility. So if we move to remote and we still want everyone to work from 9 to 5, but they've got the kids there the whole day and the kids are hyper and trying to eat and trying to get all their parents' attention the whole day, you're probably going to lose productivity. But if you can be more flexible and like, yeah, do your thing, like wake up at 4 5 a.m. or, you know, whatever it might be, and crush some hours there, then go do some stuff with the kids, and maybe the kids are like tired or chilled out for a bit, then you can do some more work and then do some more work later in the evening. Like if you as a leader can allow more flexibility for them to be ebbing and flowing with their day, especially right now where it's like not a lot of options, I would highly encourage that. The other thing that I've seen and experienced and actually love is more of a merging of personal and professional life. So if we're very attached to this very professional version of ourselves and like, you know, acting a certain way in the office, which comes with like coming in and wearing those clothes and putting the suit on and, you know, doing all of that stuff. And like, we have come out of many years of keep your personal stuff separate and don't bring it to work. And that has in many cases and cultures been kind of frowned upon. If we can start to challenge ourselves to let go of a little bit of that and just let that personal life flow in with the work life a little bit. It's not uncommon that we're having a team meeting and somebody's kids sitting on their lap or popping up to say hello or whatever. And it's not actually the end of the world. So if we can just loosen up a little bit around that, maybe welcome it in a little bit. I'm just kind of on the fly here thinking that that might help ease some of the anxiety for people who aren't really used to having that merging of personal and professional, but actually giving them the space and welcoming it in a little bit. And sometimes you're on a call, like kids are obsessed with the screen, right? They just want to say hi and wave and see their face. And maybe once they've done that, they'll go and play. So, you know, maybe it's not the end of the world to kind of let that merge a little bit. I've found benefits in that as well, is that, and this is going deeper down the path and into culture stuff, but we've found in our business, we are very transparent and very open with what's happening personally. And we've found that that actually helps because we get to know each other a lot better. We know what's going on and we can create space for it. Also, if somebody's going through something really challenging and they're trying to like hold it back and just do their work, like often they're not as productive because all of that energy is there anyway. Whereas once you can get it out and just say to your co-workers, like, this is what's up, like I'm broke up with my boyfriend and I'm pretty down, and everyone can have a bit of a chat about it, and then, you know, it kind of clears the energy a bit and you can get back to work. So we are all going through like everyone on the planet right now is kind of moving through the same thing at different paces and rates with what's happening. So there's a lot of personal stuff going on, a lot of feelings and emotions and managing and understanding and coping. And so I think creating space for that, and there might be some interesting ways where you can create some time, or I liked your suggestion of having a casual chat channel and then a more formal chat channel. So the one that's just down to business and then the ones that's down to more casual stuff, and making space for that because it exists and people need to talk about it and bond over it and get it off their chests and stuff as well. So those are kind of my initial thoughts on that from someone who doesn't have children. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on that or that's worked for them.
Sarah, I just wanted to comment. I really love that idea of merging personal and professional. You know, I've got young families. There's a very likely possibility that the childcare centres and the schools are going to close down. The majority of my team, I'd say 75% of my team, are part-time in the office and have young families. And I think what the feeling is up until this point is, you know, until even I was just listening then, is that that they felt that they might be corralled into, and from our perspective too, into taking leave rather than being a bit more flexible with the work arrangements, because it is really challenging having the kids here when you're having, you know, I had Zoom meetings with clients this week. And I was laughing thinking, oh, my little boy, he'd be going, you know, who's that? What are they doing? And like you said, they're interested in the screen. And, you know, technology is so prevalent these days that that's fair enough. But, you know, how do you manage that? And the clients had actually said to me, oh, we'd be fine with that. And it's probably my perception of that professional personal life. And I'm pretty open with my clients, but I don't bring my kids into the meeting. So I guess that's where I'm going, okay, maybe working remotely, we do need to encourage that that's something that can be done. And it's kind of cute, but, you know, you don't want it to get overwhelm the meeting. So
Yeah,
no,
I
that
think,
I
and
really
I
like.
think we are in this beautiful time, and it's a gift where people are going to be way more open-minded to the fact that we've all been forced into this position. So when I talk about people like clients, whatever, and us as leaders with our teams, like we can be far more open-minded because like we haven't had time to prepare. We haven't had time to figure it all out. There is no option for childcare. So I don't know, it's kind of a beautiful gift as well that our clients and our team, we get to know and see a little bit more in each other's lives. Like this is my home. Like it's not my home actually, I'm at a friend's, but this is where I live. This is where I hang out. This is what I'm doing. Like make some fun of it. Don't take it so seriously because pretty much the whole world is in the same boat. So it's interesting because over the years of us working remote, like I just turn up to my meetings wherever I am, wearing whatever I'm wearing. If I'm in Bali, I've probably got a bikini on. And if I'm in the mountains, I've probably got a beanie on and maybe I've just come out of skiing. And I'm still the same Sarah underneath all of that. And I can still deliver the same service, the same advice, the same everything. And more than anything, I think people enjoy that whole person that you are. So I would definitely encourage everyone to just welcome that in a little bit more and be open to it and not be so afraid because, I mean, this could well be the most freeing thing that's ever happened to you in the end. You never know.
I personally love this conversation right here. And I feel like this is going to be a huge shift in the way we work. And there's so many people that have been predicting this is going to be like the way we work in the future, but it's not like it's just going to happen like that. So this is like the first major catalyst towards a new way in working. And I've been working remote as well, and as an entrepreneur in my business. And I was just on a podcast today where I was talking about when I first started like working professionally, I wore a suit. And then one year I took off like the tie, and then it was the dress shirt and slacks. Then I went to polo and slacks, then polo and jeans. And then I got all the way down to, I've been to a client's office in a t-shirt and shorts and sandals once even. So, I mean, depends what kind of line of work you are and how professional. But my point is like, we're really humanizing everything. And in the type of coaching work I'm doing now where it's less corporate, even it's so, and even being a content creator and podcaster, things like that, some of the biggest podcasters, you know, like whatever it may be, you could be, your clients could be corporate, but it's so normal. Like you can hear the gardener that's at your house versus what the gardener at the office. What's the big difference? And now like some corporate settings have dogs. So you hear dog at the office. Some corporate settings allow you to bring your kids or your baby, some tech companies. And so you hear them. Like, I mean, we're just humanizing now that's in the home. So I echo everything you're saying. And I think this is a time when it's really it's exciting. I agree. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there is an opportunity, if there's children in the house, to kind of share the load as well. So if there's obviously a couple that can kind of split the time when they work and look after the children. A friend of mine, both of her and her husband are working from home, and they have a dog as well as a child, and they really try to share the load when they're working. So they set aside certain hours when he's looking after their baby, and then I'm looking after the baby another time throughout the day. So they both have enough time to do their meetings, but also get enough work done. And I know it's sometimes tough to separate that within the house. But if you don't have enough space or don't have a separate office or a separate room where you can set up a little office space. However, I think just trying to share that as much as possible and kind of giving each other that space within the small space that we might have at the moment available for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great idea. Something that's coming to mind as we're talking about this stuff as well is, and I can't remember the source right now, but I read a book several years ago that talked about how we have about 2 hours and 45 minutes, I think it is, of like highly effective brain productivity every day. And after that, like it kind of starts to decrease. And so, you know, we're having our teams come and work for 8 hours a day or whatever, but just remembering that like there is this actual smaller window of like really productive time, and potentially by being more flexible, we can like tap into that productive time. I'm sure we've all had the experience of achieving in 2 hours what we normally take all bloody day to do, and we think, what did we normally do? But when we've got a little pressure or something, there's a deadline, we can somehow like get it done. Kind of maybe opening up some space to approach our days like that, where when we're in, we would all know, and we can talk to our teams about like, when do you feel most alive? When do you feel most on? For me, it's early in the morning. So often I wake up pretty early, like sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock, and I go and like punch out a couple of hours of work. And that is my most productive time of my day for sure. So no matter what happens later in the day, for me, it's never like, I'm never going to get as much done as what I get done in those few hours. Other people, it's late at night. Other people, it's middle of the day. But maybe like harnessing that a little bit. And so with what Pam was suggesting around sharing the load with kids and stuff, like how do you clear that space for those most productive hours, and then like do your best the rest of the time? I just thought of that. That could be something, I mean, we kind of talk about that in our team, but that could be something to talk about when it comes to managing resources and managing, you know, your space and how you're getting things done each day. Right, what else we got?
I have a tool for that help. I have a time audit worksheet where you just be very diligent about everything that you're working on. And then from there, you can look at what you want to take off your plate and start to prioritize. So if you guys would like me to share, I'm happy to put it in the chat here.
Yeah, put in the chat, or we can email it out afterwards as well if you don't mind sharing it, Sam. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What have I got on my list to have a think about? Does anyone have questions? Otherwise, I'll dive into. One thing I would think is getting a workspace set up. So probably just, especially right now, where not only are we working from home, we're also quarantined in our homes. So that's like, this is something really interesting that me and my team have been talking about, is like, nothing has changed for us from a work perspective. It's all very normal, but we still don't have the freedom around what we did before. Like most of us in different parts of the world are now can't really leave, or getting very close to the point where we're not able to leave our houses. So, you know, I think being mindful of the fact that creating a separate space from, like, creating different spaces in your home for different energies and different times of the day, because it can go pretty stir crazy. So it can be easy to sit on the couch or in bed with your laptop and work away. And I honestly do that a lot. But now during this period where I'm not getting the separation from my home space that I normally would by going out and socializing or going to yoga or whatever it is, I'm being a little bit more diligent about like, okay, this is the room I'm going to work in. This is the room I'm going to sleep in. This is the room I'm going to socialize or relax in, or socialize with the one other person in my house. But you know what I mean? Like, try to like create some separate space. I think that would be probably good advisory stuff to give your teams, so that they don't get in these habits of just working from bed or working on the couch or whatever. And I think during this time in particular, that's going to be a bit of a no-no, just because the whole energy of the entire house will just get mixed up, and it will just start to feel very claustrophobic. And I think that's just something realistically we have to try to manage ourselves. Thinking back to that policy idea that you were talking about, Elliot, or this guidelines thing, you know, you might want to put in there something about getting some fresh air, like going outside and taking a break. Once again, unique to this scenario where we're forced to kind of stay in our homes, is like getting some movement in, getting outside, maybe setting an alarm every hour to just go outside and get some fresh air, or do something, whatever that looks like based on your scenario. If you can walk the streets, go for a walk or whatever. Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud as we're talking that we are in quite unusual situation and circumstance in that regard. So I think giving that opportunity to people, or guidelines to people, sorry, would be quite beneficial for them as well, just so that they're not like sitting there working straight and then like having that blend into the rest of the day of being at home.
I think also for me, what's always important is to have like some form of routine and around food. So I don't just get up and eat something out of the fridge, and try to really stick to certain times where I cook some food and enjoy that, which also gives me a bit of a break from everything. And I try not to work while I do that. Because for some people that is they do that at the same time, or have a meeting while they cook. I do that sometimes too, but that's on days where I literally have back-to-back meetings. But just also finishing up at a particular time, or I've got in my house on my bedroom door, I've got a sign saying work-free zone. So I really try to keep anything work related, whether it's checking anything on my phone, running any meetings, or doing anything work related. My bedroom is my sanctuary, so I want to keep it out of that. So if I have to go into my bedroom for whatever reasons, I can't take work with me, so it has to stay out here. And that really forces me as well to switch off at a certain time, which for some people that is something they haven't experienced before, because when they leave the office, then they finish up for the day, whereas when you're at home, that kind of becomes a little bit blurry. So creating that routine is something that I found very helpful for myself.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important. Something else that I was thinking about, and please just jump up with questions when you've got them, is probably back to your point, Therese, a little bit. We've had like virtual Christmas parties and things like that before, but if your company has a culture of Friday night drinks or Wednesday lunches together or something, I think that's a great idea to just find a way to keep that going virtually. So having a space like we're all sitting here, cameras on. Oh, that's another point about cameras on. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. Just to like be social. Because that will be something that we're all missing and craving right now, and we'll definitely be missing our teammates if we're used to going into the office and having some of that social time. So having one day a week where you all sit down and have lunch together on camera, or where you share a glass of wine at the end of the week, or whatever it might be. It could be breakfast, whatever works for your team, like keeping some of that social side going if you do have that as part of your culture. I think people get really concerned that they won't be able to create culture online. And I mean, you'll figure out pretty quickly that your culture still exists even when you're not in the same physical space. Absolutely, and very easily, much more easily than you would imagine. But thinking about how to just recreate those things that you are doing in person into an online space will help that. Cameras on is the one thing that I don't think we've touched on, but with your daily huddle, your team meetings, any meetings, anytime you want to talk about something, if you just want to jump on a call to figure out a problem that someone's nutting over, like really encourage your team to do it on camera. It makes a really big difference. Like I'm enjoying sitting here looking at you guys. We're in different places all over the world, and it's really nice right now to be connecting at the end of my day here in the US. And I'm just thinking like that's a really big encourager, is to just have people put their cameras on. Also comes back to merging the personal and professional. Remind them that it doesn't matter if they're not dressed perfectly, or they didn't feel like putting their makeup on that day, or whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. Like just have a look at each other's faces, say hi, hang out. It feels a lot more personable than just being on the phone or just on the message. So I'd highly encourage Zoom, Google Hangouts, Skype, I guess probably. I don't really use Skype anymore, but probably does all of this stuff. FaceTime just for a quick chat, but get in that habit of using the videoing technology over and above the phone technology. Another thing I love is voice notes. If I'm on the go thinking about something that I don't need to like talk it through in conversation, but I want someone to remember something, really, really nice to receive a voice note on WhatsApp or whatever to your teammate, to each other, and have a conversation that way. Everybody's busy. I've thought of something, I can flick Theodora, she's my marketing manager, I could flick her a voice note on an idea I've had, and she can get to it whenever she gets to it. But that's another really nice thing, that you know, we don't really utilize when we're working in office together, but anything you can do to make it a bit more personal than just texting goes a long way.
I
Right,
just want to chime
more?
in now because I really love that, because I'm listening to this going, oh, that suits me. I hate having to type stuff out, and so I'm very much a visual, talk it out kind of person. And you know, you can get something said in like a few minutes that you could sit there agonising over what you're typing out. And I've been thinking about that even in the last couple of days, because the team are all in the office and I'm at home isolated. I'm there and I'm like, oh, you know, I've got to type this message, and the voice messages and things. I think that's really going to be so useful for me.
Oh my God. Voice notes are literally the savior of my life. Like, not only from a work perspective, but from a social perspective. I live very globally, very nomadically. And, you know, I can't always find the exact time that matches up for me to have a conversation with a best girlfriend or whatever. And, you know, I could find in my messages, like just voice note after voice note, where we've just got this ongoing conversation going backwards and forwards that's stretching out for weeks on end. But it's just so nice. It's such a nice way to connect. And it kind of allows people to come back when they're ready, but they've actually heard your voice. And as you pointed out, you can get a lot more said, and you can kind of talk around it and get all your ideas out or whatever it is, your instructions. And it's just a lot easier than typing in an email. So yeah, really encourage
probably
that.
Things aren't misinterpreted. There's no misinterpretation of the tone of something where, you know, if you type something out, that can happen too.
Totally. And like, just as leaders, send your team a voice note at the end of the day, like, hey, great job you did on that. Like, I'm thinking of you and I hope you're doing good. And we've been like really busy the last week. For us, we're in the thick of it, trying to do stuff like this and help out where we can. And business is really growing as a result of this, which is amazing. But, you know, I realized the other day, I was like, oh shit, I haven't like asked my team how they're doing with all of this, because we're so on and in it, and our work hasn't shifted. So there's no big change for us, except that we're really busy. And I just sent them all a voice note in our group WhatsApp that we use for the casual stuff. And, you know, it was really well appreciated. Like, people really appreciated it, because I guess it was just nice to hear the voice of their leader and asking, checking in, saying that, you know, hope they're all doing okay. And, you know, we had a good chat and a good exchange of messages after that. So I'd encourage that from like a personal touch as well as a leader, just to, someone had a good day or a bad day, just drop them a note, let them know you're thinking of them, let them know you appreciate them. That kind of thing can be really well received as well. All right, got time for a couple more questions. Fire away.
I ask a follow-up question in relation to that. I was reading up about some of the challenges with remote work, and it seems like assumed knowledge falling through the cracks, people assuming that other people know things because the subtle cues of how you pick up or share information doesn't really work as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what that looks like in the nitty gritty. So could you speak a bit about how that goes wrong and ways of stopping that?
So if I understand you correctly, I think it kind of goes back a little bit to, well, there's probably a couple of parts. One of the things that happens is, because we don't have that proximity, and that what I was saying earlier about like just turning around and asking somebody to do something or where something is, or remind, like, how's that thing? There are some things, like, you might not realize that when you ask so-and-so in your team to do something, that they chit chat with the person who sits next to them, and that person always reminds them how to do it or what to do. And, you know, there's just all this little stuff that's going on that's often not documented in the business and can get lost or slowed down when we have a different cadence of communication. So I would encourage you to look at using this time as well to document and systemize things that are not. And it doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to create this amazing business manual that's so, you know, comprehensive. Just using a tool like Basecamp or Asana to create checklists, or, you know, the simplest version would just be Google Docs or something like that, that just detail in dot points, like what has to be done for different things. And the easiest way to do that is have your team members actually create it for their own systems and processes that they do regularly. So you don't have to do it as the leader or yourself. Your managers don't have to do it. I'd absolutely get the team members doing it. But this is a really amazing opportunity to improve the systems and processes and structures within your business, so that all of that kind of assumed knowledge and things that people, there's a lot of stuff that lives in people's heads as well. And when we're scaling our businesses, then we're also going to struggle because, you know, it's not necessarily a scalable process that someone else can follow and we can train easily on, because someone's just been doing the job and they just know how to do it. So I would encourage, especially for many of us where in some regards business might be slowing down for a little bit, we might have a bit of a down period, like use this time as an opportunity to systemize and process drive your business. All of my businesses and all my businesses since became far better businesses when I went remote, in terms of the value of them and the saleability and scalability of them, far better, because we were forced to create better systems and processes. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
I
that was
would
great.
probably like to add as well, because Sam mentioned Loom. So one of the things that I also really encourage is videos. Record really short little videos on certain things. So if someone really has something that they need to work out and someone knows how to do it, they can use Looms, share their screen and talk them through the steps, and then you can download it and put it somewhere where it is accessible for the whole team. So we've created in Google Drive a whole folder of different areas of the business where we put videos in there. We also have like written sort of step-by-step guides depending on what needs to get done or how to do it, and so people can always go back to it. It also helps creating an onboarding process for new staff members. So often we spend like hours and days training new staff members that come in, and we have to make time for that as well. Whereas if you start creating these videos, and I probably would say up to 15-20 minutes max per video, like rather cut it a little bit short, because then if you need to redo it because something has changed, it doesn't take as long. Plus also we don't necessarily have time to watch videos that are like an hour long all the time, but it helps for new staff members to basically get the main information that they need without you having to do, or someone in the team having to take the time to do that. So I find that very valuable as well. And there's other tools apart from Loom as well.
Even just recording the Zoom session. So if you get on Zoom like we are now and run someone through something that you want them to do that's a repeatable process, just record that Zoom call and use that as a training video for future people. The other thing I was thinking with training, showing people, if somebody reaches out and they're like, how do I do this thing? I don't know how to do it. Go on Zoom and have them share their screen, and then you talk them through it. So rather than you sharing your screen and showing them, have them share their screen and be like, top right, then click this thing, so that they're actually doing it, which emulates you going up behind them at their desk and like, you know, showing them as they're operating their own computer, which is, it's always better for training if we're actually doing it ourselves. If we're the ones that's going to perform, if we're being trained, it's better if we do it ourselves versus just sitting and watching somebody do something. It's very hard to remember. So screen sharing is amazing, and have them share their screen and you talk them through the steps for training. But yeah, recording them, keeping them. It's actually another really cool thing about pretty much everything when you run remotely is that you can record and save almost everything that happens. So all of our sales calls, for example, are on Zoom and they're all recorded. All of our client meetings, all of our contractor meetings. I used to be a financial planner. All of our new client meetings, all of the coaching sessions we did, all of the investment review meetings we did were all on Zoom and all recorded and saved in the client's file. But that in itself creates training and examples of good meetings and bad meetings and stuff that you can use later as you scale and grow your business. So there's some really amazing advantages of being remote, because we can't do that when we're in office. We can't record, you know, the call that happened with a client. And let's think about sales, for example, you have a new salesperson start and, you know, they're having trouble like closing their deals or whatever. You can go, they can tell you like, this meeting was particularly difficult. Can you go in, or the sales manager, can you go in and have a look and tell me where I lost them or where it went poorly? So in terms of like coaching, you can have a lot more coaching happening because you can see what's going on. You as a leader, record your team meeting, go and watch yourself and see like how you're coming across as a leader. Like, are you inspiring your people? Do you have good energy? Like, we have so many blind spots that we don't know about. So many things that we come in to our office with our energy and everybody's feeling it. We can't even see it in ourselves. Like when I was in the office, I was the worst micromanager of all time. And I was an asshole pretty much. Like I would be walking around getting pissed off at my team for like random shit that probably had nothing to do with their job, but it was the things that I could see. I don't have to worry about that anymore, but you know, I can look back on my team meetings and I can see like, how did I bring my energy? How did I show up as a leader? How did I like engage them and inspire them? So there's like a lot of opportunity to kind of look back on the things that we're doing that we don't usually have because we're not usually on camera all the time. So that's been kind of a fun process and discovery as well. Is there any questions in the chat, or are you guys just chatting to each other? Everybody. Any more questions before we finish up? Maybe one more, unless I've been so amazing and answered everything for you.
Maybe one of the questions, and it's more for someone else that might be interested in that, is how do I actually go about finding someone remotely that is currently not local, or someone that is not necessarily local? Like, how do I actually find good people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, and I wasn't really going to get into that today. Obviously, our company does it, but I think Upwork, Freelancer, and there are websites where you can advertise for remote people. I think we're going to see an upsurge in people looking for work right now because so many people are getting laid off. So I think that's something to think about. If your company is actually still faring well, there's going to be people, talented people all over the world that have had to have been let go. So, you know, I guess this is just like being human and being good community people. But if you are in a position where your business is still growing and you can hire people, I think there's going to be a lot of great people on the market right now. But yeah, I mean, I don't really want to massively go into that on this call. So I might just leave it at that. If there's any more questions, and if anyone does want to talk to me about that separately, I'm happy to have a chat. But if there's not any more questions on the remote emergency stuff, then we can wrap it up. Everybody seems good. Well, it was amazing to see the faces of the people that I can see, and it was amazing to see the names of the people that I can see. But thank you for joining us, and good luck with anything and with everything. And my doors are always open, metaphorically speaking. So reach out if you do want any tips or tricks, or you get stuck on anything. I'm here to help. Myself or someone in my team will help. So yeah, have a beautiful day or evening or night or wherever you are.